Welcome to Parents Perspective with Mike and Amy. My name is Mike Thomas, and with me is the ever awesome Amy Bishop. And this program is part of an education series through the St. Clair County Speak Youth Coalition and is funded in part by Region 10 in partnership with the St. Clair County Health Department and local organizations in the Blue Water area.
So last week, we talked about trauma and how it affects our children, our teens, and how it can leave long-lasting effects even into adulthood. So today with us is Rob Perrin to finish up the ever-important topic of trauma. So thanks again, Rob, for joining us.
My pleasure to be here, guys.
So many parents may feel hopeless when it comes to helping a child cope with trauma. So I'd love it if you could share some things to help parents know how we can help our kids through that. What can parents do at home with their children to help deal with those traumatic experiences?
So listen, it always starts with the relationship. And I get this a question a lot from parents. And I don't want to make it more complex than it really needs to be, because if we're not with our kids enough, then we don't open communication. And we don't strengthen that relationship. And when a kid goes through trauma, what they really need to know is somebody's there for them. Somebody's paying attention, and somebody's there to help them through this. And that all starts with the relationship. You can say it, but if you don't follow it up with action, then it rings hollow. So to absolutely plan on time spent with them. Quality time, even if it's just sitting and watching a movie together, but it's shared joy, just something that they're doing, and you're just making an effort of it. And I really, sometimes because life is busy, you may have to plan it. It doesn't mean you can't have spontaneous time together, because I think that's awesome, but like something that's planned where they know they can count on this is structure, this is routine, and stick with it. Make it a priority. Don't let something override it. Don't change it if at all possible, minus major crisis. Because one of the things kids need when they go through trauma is they need some predictability. Because the world wasn't predictable for a stretch, and if the world becomes predictable again, safety can follow. And the ultimate goal in helping any child deal with trauma is they need to feel safe in their world again. And it starts with, who cares about me? Who matters to me? So that is done with quality time together. You can create routines around that. You can it can be dinner times. It can be whatever works, within your family setting, but find ways to spend time together. And don't make it pressure. Don't make it like at the end of the time together, it has to be something magical where you just feel like, oh my gosh, that was life-changing. Okay. Take that pressure off of it. It starts just being together, and if your child is kind of resistant to that at first, or they're not high-fiving you for spending time with them, that's okay. That's okay. Continue to open that door, continue to make time for that. And then honestly, to talk about what happened, to talk about the trauma, to open it up for communication. And not in a pressuring way. And sometimes your child doesn't even have to say a whole lot about it. Maybe you're just reflecting feelings and thoughts about kind of what's happened. But here's what we don't want to do. We don't want to make the traumatic event taboo. We don't want to make it something that is not talked about within the family. For many reasons. One, we want a child to learn how to speak to it, put words to it, because we use our words to heal. And if we have words to put to it, we can not only express it to other people so they understand us better, but we can also work it out internally within our own mind, because we have tools to use it called words. Like, I can make sense of this now. But also we want to promote, like, okay, this isn't so traumatic. This isn't so end of the world stuff here. Like this isn't taboo where we can't talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, the underlying message is you can't heal from this. This is so bad, even I can't talk about it. This is something we're just going to avoid discussing. And if the child takes that meaning from you, then that becomes internal. And a lot of times they'll suppress that memory, they'll hide it, they'll avoid it. And the one thing about trauma, it will always find a way to express itself. It will always come out. And if it's not soon, it'll come out later. It'll get you. If you don't deal with it in a healthy way, it'll get you. So the sooner, the better. So continue to open those doors, spend time together, open communication, and just send a message of, I love you and I want to be around you. And let's work through this together as a team.
I like that a lot. So how do we go about doing that? Do we bring it up? Do I bring it up as a parent? How do we encourage our children to come forward and share, like, hey, I'm dealing with this, or I want to talk about this now? Or does that just naturally happen when you're spending time together, like you say?
Yeah, well, in obviously back to the spending time together. We first and foremost, that's step one. We got to be around each other to talk to each other, right? And to take the pressure off. Like, you don't want your child to walk into that time together and feel like I have to talk about something, because then that can kind of have some pushback. And it almost can feel abusive, and not intentionally by the parent, but if a child feels forced again to kind of relive it, that kind of is in the same umbrella of I was forced to do something else, or I was forced in another situation. And we don't want to package it like that. So we just want to be together. You can reflect on it. You can talk, you can say, hey, listen, I'm just wondering, I've read about some trauma. Like, let them know you're doing your own research, you're doing your own education. I've read about some trauma, and I know a lot of kids kind of, when they go through trauma, they kind of experience these things. And I'm just curious, are you noticing any of those things? There's all kinds of good research out there about kind of the effects of trauma on children. And just speak to those. And what it can do is, one, it opens communication, but two, it can normalize some of this. Like, okay, other kids go through this too. Other kids experience this too. Other kids heal from this too. And hopefully it gives the child some hope. But also it gives the idea that maybe somebody kind of gets me. Maybe my mom or dad or caregiver, they kind of know what I'm going through a little bit here. And even if they don't say a lot around that, it can feel very validating. And that in itself, I mean, every kid's got a different form of expression. Some kids are very verbal, and they put 1,000 words to it. Other kids, it may just be a nod. It may just be a few words, but it doesn't mean that they didn't hear you and they didn't receive it, and it can't have the desired impact of helping them feel heard and supported. So absolutely, spending time together, reflecting, sharing what they feel might going as a parent, kind of leading the way of, I'm wondering if this is what's going on, and kind of just continuing to be around each other. I think that's the best strategy to kind of help children through those times.
So Rob, children are different, and there may be some that are out there that have traumatic experience so severe that we may not be able to possibly handle it ourselves as parents. If that's the case, what types of supports are available out in the local community that we can rely on to help get through those times where it just seems like whatever we do is just not enough, and maybe they're withdrawing, maybe they're thinking about harming themselves or other things like that? Where can we turn in this community to get that type of help?
Yeah, good question. First off, parents who are in these situations, to kind of let go of the shame or guilt around, like, I can't help my child through this right now. Traumatized children, it is a complex issue. It is not parenting 101. It's an advanced course, and boy, is it complex. So needing support can, it absolutely can be a wonderful thing, and it can certainly provide assistance for parents. I would try to find a therapist that doesn't work just with the child, because families heal together, especially with trauma, because that's a shared experience. And ultimately, good therapy, what it does is it helps the parent or the caregiver become an extension of the therapy. So we're all on the same page. The child's hearing the same supportive messages, promoting healing and so forth. So if they have to reach out, there's a lot of wonderful community or agencies, therapy agencies in the community that do wonderful, wonderful work. Obviously, I'm biased. I work for CMH, and I'm going to speak to that because I know it better, and I think we probably provide the best services. And we have a wonderful staff here. We truly do. And what we do, because we are CMH, we do have some more opportunities for training through the state and so forth. And I touched on earlier, but there's a model called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. It's shown wonderful benefits to so many children who go through trauma. The research is pretty undeniable that this works. So what I would do is, if you feel like your child's struggling with that, I would seek out, I would contact CMH, see if they can qualify to get in for some services. And I would specifically ask for TF-CBT services to help them through the trauma. And I would make sure that you're an active part. You should be anyway, because the therapists promote that, encourage that, but make sure you're an active part of that therapy process. So you're gaining education and information on how to help your child through trauma. But it's a pretty amazing model. And I went through several kids, and honestly, in my 20 years of doing therapy, I've said on some sessions where some of the more powerful therapy moments I've ever seen have been through children healing with trauma. with their caregiver as part of that process. It's pretty amazing. So I would encourage that. The model, there's research online about it if people want to search it, but they're also welcome to contact me directly. I'd be more than happy to explain the model to people and how it could benefit their family and their children.
Thanks for that. And, I'm also curious too, is with like diet and our overall health factors playing in, are there certain foods, vitamins, exercises, things like that we should be incorporating to make sure that from a physical perspective, our children's overall being can be best affected? I mean, what would be some things that we should be eating or should be doing physically to handle all this?
Well, Mike, you're singing my song here. Okay? Because I am huge on this, okay? Well, oh my God, I'm probably obsessive on exercise and diet, and I'll tell you what, it is. I've done some, no matter how good I could be as a therapist or how ineffective, if you improve diet and exercise, you're already 2 steps into that process. It is so critical. Exercise, it just promotes a lot of things. Well, just to speak to this, I had a very this is not me, this isn't like self-disclosure time. I had a very traumatic lifestyle. So this is why this is a personal issue for me. Very traumatic, very complex trauma throughout the majority of my childhood due to many, many issues. But exercise, and that was my turning point. As I got through high school, barely, I picked up exercise, and because I had a lot of messages early on in my life that kind of running narratives that I talked about things I've learned that were very destructive. And exercise kind of helped rewire my brain. It changed me in a very dramatic way. I would have never went to college if it wasn't for exercise. I certainly wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't find some self-discipline and I put energy into myself, gain confidence, gain some strategies and to manage life, manage the related stresses. And so I'm over the top. Every kid I work with, I really try to promote physical activity. Some of these kids are not really in this video game world. Trying to sell, hey, let's go exercise is a tough sell, but it's one worth battling. So I absolutely, positively promote that. I know a lot of the gains for exercise are kind of well studied, but it changes brain chemistry. It can certainly kind of rewire the brain in some ways. It's a form of self-love, which is ultimately a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of take care of yourself. For kids who've went through physical abuse and sexual abuse, it can help reshape how they feel about their body. It obviously can also, grow with as far as self-esteem and confidence about who I am, and they start to love yourself more because all of a sudden you feel better, you feel healthier. There's all kinds of research that shows exercise reduces PTSD symptoms, which is awesome. It changes breathing and on and on. The benefits of exercise are just astronomical, not just for trauma and PTSD, but so many other things. So I would absolutely promote that. And one of the things it does also is if you're exercising, you're probably not sitting inside as much. You're probably not on your screen as much. Okay, you're probably not laying on the couch as much. So not only the benefits of what you're doing, but also the benefits of what you're not doing. And so I'm a big proponent of that. As far as diet goes, and I'm not a nutritionist, but I do a ton of research and a ton of reading on this stuff. And so trauma it's a brain challenge, right? Something's happened and our brain is stressing on it and it doesn't know what to do with it, kind of what I referred to before. But high sugar diets, high carbohydrate diets, what they do is they can cause inflammation. Now, carbohydrates can be a very healthy in itself. I don't want to discourage that, but moderation. Sugar in itself can be very destructive, and the addictive qualities of sugar, in laboratory studies on mice and rats, it is more addictive than some of the hardcore drugs out there. The mice will choose sugar over anything else because of what it does to the brain. So kind of tells you how destructive sugar can be. But what sugar does, it causes inflammation, not just in the body, but also in the brain. All right, so you're already asking your brain, hey, brain, deal with this trauma, work through this trauma. I'm going to put a whole bunch of extra stress on you as you try to figure out this trauma. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to give you a bunch of sugar too that's going to cause inflammation. So good luck with all that. Real bad combo as far as kind of helping the brain heal through trauma. So diet is critical. What I would suggest just in general is proteins, a very stable source of energy. So really, a lot of kids don't get enough healthy proteins. So it kind of decreases the instability. For kids who are traumatized, they already have a lot of unstable mood. So a stable source of protein energy can be a good measure. Also healthy fats. Our brain is mostly water and fat. And when we eat healthy fats, we're nourishing our brain and we're helping it heal, right? Because that's not everything makes it to the brain, to the blood-brain barrier. Certain healthy fats will get there and they'll promote healing. So if you're trying to help your child heal, therapy is one way to do it, exercise is another way to do it. But if you're not getting the nutrients to help your brain kind of function at its best, you're limiting your possible gains there. So I'm big on all this. Guys, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell for many of our kids because let's be honest, if you can have a candy bar or ice cream or whatever, and instead of some broccoli and some some healthy foods, it's this is not happening. Last thing I'll say on all that is just real food. Eat real food. If it's got one or two ingredients, it's golden, right? Because when you put it in your mouth and you start to digest it and your brain kind of goes down, what do I have to do to break this down? It has a long evolutionary history of, I know what this is and I know how to do this. You put processed foods in your brain says, what is this? I don't know what this is. And it goes through a whole bunch of extra stress. And so again, what are we doing? We're taxing our brain to break down a food that it doesn't even know what it is and what to do with it. And our brain's already working overtime because of the trauma. Just a real bad combination. And so we want to be very mindful of diet. So I absolutely critical stuff.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. And so one other quick question I have, because you mentioned a lot about activities, things that youth can do. So we talked about exercise and food. I'm curious, are there other things available to us, like other activities that we can do for our mind and our bodies, with or without parents, that our children can do to deal with effects of trauma? So aside from like walking and jogging and exercise like that, what are some other things that a child can do to cope?
So, and it can be a tough sell, especially if you're younger kids, but I'm huge on mindfulness. This is like something that I've been practicing for years. And honestly, it's kind of helped me heal from some of my stuff, right? To kind of get more present and to kind of work on being truly in the moment and being present. And I know it's an old, saying, be present, but it's complicated, right? Because our brain's going to tug us in all kinds of directions. And traumatized kids by nature, they live a lot out of fear of future, what could happen, right? And processing past, like what did happen. And they're kind of getting tugged back and forth on this and not living enough in the present. And the present is kind of our prefrontal cortex activity. And that's where our empathy lives. That's where our happiness lives. That's where our thrive brain lives. And if we're not there enough, obviously it's going to impair our ability to kind of just live our life and be successful and do some things. So I think it's a challenge to kind of get kids to do this, but like all of my kids, I'll try to find what works for them. Like for many of my kids, they're not going to sit in a chair and meditate for 15 minutes. Okay. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Boy, that'd be great if it could, but it's not that easy. So we're going to be real creative on, can you give me 2 minutes of this? Let's try that. Let's, so we will come up with anything that can get them truly present in the moment. Or even using their senses, right? Because our senses our 5 senses kind of pull us into the moment, right? I got kids doing all kinds of activities. I got kids taking contrast showers, especially some of the older boys I work with who are a little more open to this, where they fluctuate, from 5 to 10 seconds of water a little warmer than normal. I got to be careful that I'm not trying to cook them. I'm not trying to scald them here, but a water in the shower a little warmer than they're comfortable with, and then turning it a little colder than they're comfortable with. And over time but what it does is it taps into the prefrontal cortex of presence, right? I am here now. And then during that, we'll do some breathing, right? So, and this can be a 5-minute thing. Like every morning most of my kiddos take a shower in the morning. So this becomes, we're pairing a wonderful skill with something I already do. And then if we can do that, then we build a chance that this will sustain over time versus, I got to remember to do that. So that's just one example of anything, spending time in nature, anything that can kind of get them in the moment, right? Having fun. Honestly, having fun is the most amazing, wonderful medicine ever created. So to find opportunity to enjoy life, and a lot of this stuff may have to be parent, promoted, right? The parents are going to have to push them in some directions, and let's try this. Let's do it together. Let's find something. But it could be drawing. Like for some kids, I work with some amazingly artistic kids, and oh my gosh, I mean, I'm at the stick figure level, so anything I draw is just putrid. But I work with one young lady. She could be, her stuff should be hanging on a wall somewhere. But when she draws, it is just amazing, and it's so present oriented for her. And she struggles with all kinds of trauma and bipolar disorder, all that stuff. But when she's drawing, that's her place. So as we train our front brain to be active more often, and a lot of this is just muscle memory stuff, guys. Trauma kind of teaches us to be in different parts of our brain more often than we want it to be. Being present, being mindful, teaches us to be in our front brain more often. If we can do that more and more often, then we've done something very effective. So I have one more thing, affirmations. I'm big on affirmations if kids are willing to do it, to kind of program their mind, because we're working against a running narrative of I'm not worthy, I'm not okay, there's something defective about me, especially kids who've been abused or sexually abused. A lot of times they start to look at themselves as flawed, right? So we want to kind of reprogram that subconscious track of I'm not okay. So affirmations can certainly, and research has shown that can certainly be an effective tool.
That's awesome.
I remember, Amy, I don't know if you ever did this or not, but like when we were go out on vacation, have like a pool that had a hot tub. You were talking about contrast showers, Rob. We used to sit in the hot tub and then jump in the cold pool, and stuff like that. I never would have thought that would like bring into presence, but I remember things like that. But yeah, always having fun. That's always been the thing for me. Anytime I dealt with a lot of stress, try to find a way to have fun with it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Excellent.
Excellent.
Fun's the best antidepressant ever. So absolutely.
Rob, I have another question, and this will be kind of our last one that we ask, and it's what if I'm a parent that has actually contributed to my child's traumatic experiences and trauma that they're living with now? What's some things I can do to kind of stop that cycle and be a part of their healing instead?
And that's a great question. And we see a lot of that at CMH. We have some parents who've, come from, generational stresses and challenges and just kind of had their own, their own stuff that's gotten in the way of them being the parent they could be, right? Nobody wanted to be the bad parent, but their challenges got in the way of them being the parent they could be. And then they've created some circumstances and they have to kind of work through that. So it starts with one owning it, and just saying, yeah, this is what I did, and this is kind of the choices I made. So it starts there, and depending, and this has got to be an age appropriate situation. This isn't conversations you necessarily would have with a 2 or 3 year old, but if your child's a little older, to speak to it and say, this is what was going on in my life. These are, this is what I did. And this is kind of what was happening, and not in an excuse-based manner, but just in an open, honest conversation. And then to speak about how I'm going to make it right. Like this is a really powerful, if your child's able to receive that, to say, what do you need from me to make this right? And these are going to be my efforts to make it right. And that can be kind of a back and forth communication about how do we heal from this. And that's really what we want it to be the starting point of this is about growth, right? And then hear what your child has to say about it, and make it okay for them to express themselves, as far as their frustrations and their anger, and really do our best to not become defensive, because it can hurt to hear a child say, you caused this for me, or you did this for me. Sit with that, and feel that with them, and certainly you can apologize, but don't try to over-explain it or defend it, because your child has every right to feel the way they do, and to make that okay for them, because that's part of their healing. That's part of them forgiving you to say, hey, can you take me telling you this? Because then all of a sudden, if you can, that communication stays open, going forward, and that's really ultimately what we want. But here's the challenge. So parents who've kind of messed it up a little bit, right? A lot of times they want to make it better. They want to make it okay. So they change their parenting style. They become very permissive. They kind of try to make their child happy and make it okay, because they know, oh my gosh, I did this thing, and now I want my child to like me. So I'm going to give in to them more. I'm going to give them more freedoms, and they're ready to manage. It's a normal human response, but when we parent out of guilt and shame, we're just not our best self. We're just not, and we allow our kids to do things. We allow our kids to kind of get away with things. We don't hold them accountable like we should. And we basically, promote them developing their own bad habits, right? The number one way you show a child that, one, you speak to being, I owned it, I did it, but paying attention to them, holding them accountable, setting firm limits, firm limits, and sticking to it. That is an act of love. That is telling your child, I'm watching you and I'm paying attention to it. And I think I'm doing a better job with all this now. And that's okay to kind of send a message. Oh, I'm on duty now, and I'm on duty better than I used to be. But also knowing full well that as we set limits with children, especially as they get older, they don't love limits. They want more control. They want to be able to kind of do what they want to do. So they may push back, right? So as you set limits, and maybe you didn't do this in the past, or you did something that you regret, they may use that as kind of a trigger for you. Like, I'm going to try to push that button because ultimately I want to get what I want. And I know if I can go there, I can kind of disable mom or dad and make them feel guilty, and maybe they'll give in to me. Let them go there. Let them stay that. You can certainly feel that pain, but don't let it change the feel. And also kind of normalize that. The kids kind of, they want what they want, and what they have to learn is what works and doesn't work. And if it doesn't work when they come at you and try to hit that wound, they'll let it go. They'll let it go over time. I would just say, I understand how you feel, and walk away from it. Stick to the rules and stay firm in that. And that is the kindest, the best way we can show that we love them. Again, I mentioned spend time with them, have fun with them. And I guess the other thing, and I think I just look at my notes here, but the kids they're amazing. They're amazingly resilient. They heal from so many things. They're incredible. And I love working with kids. I like kids so much more than adults, but this is because I'm biased, and probably because I'm a little immature and I just relate with them better. But they're just, if you give them unconditional love and safety, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. All right. And just trust that. And it may take some time, and there may be some ugly moments along that path, but stay the course, and you'll get the outcome you want with that.
That's true. Parenting is rewarding. It's a bumpy journey sometimes, but it's certainly rewarding.
Absolutely.
Well, Rob, we wanted to thank you for joining. There was a lot of great information on there. We really appreciate your feedback, and it was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. And thank you to all the viewers that are on as well, too. Again, we're always on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. So if you could tune in next week, we're going to actually take a little bit of time. We're going to talk about boredom and some things that we can do as a family or individually, teaching our youth some fun activities that they can do both indoors and outdoors to kind of pass the time during these long, blustery, wintry days. And again, thank you, Rob. And if you guys would, keep following us on Instagram. You like us on Facebook, and add any comments you want. We'd love to get more comments, questions, and topics that you would like to see presented on this show. But until then, we want to thank you. Have a great day, and we'll talk with you soon.